You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for a Test Cricket special. We've got action from England, in New Zealand, India, in Australia, South Africa, at home against Sri Lanka. We may even get rounds to West Indies v Bangladesh. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross. Ross, it's the official Test Cricket window.
Yeah,
You've got what Michael Vaughan wanted.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular, right? Everywhere you look, you've got Test cricket happening. Unfortunately, things aren't completely going as badly as Sri Lanka's innings, where they got all bowled out for 42. And this looks like it's quite competitive. Like people can actually travel around the world and win games of cricket away from home.
Yeah, it's just a shame that nobody has travelled to the stadiums in some of the locations. The matches are being played. I think we'll probably focus mainly on New Zealand, England, and India or Australia. There's some really good Australia meltdown stuff, which will come up probably in part 2. But yeah, we'll try and keep everyone abreast of the World Test Championship conundrum.
Because everyone cares about
permutations.
it. Everyone cares. Ben Stokes might not care. England might not care, but everyone cares about the World Test Championship.
Yeah, well, as they should. Ross, before we do that, though, Manscaped, they're sponsoring the show. What do you have to tell me about Manscaped?
Well, with the holidays creeping up faster than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you, Jack. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner award, I know what yours are like, next to your baked beans or whatever you serve with your roast dinner.
That is true.
Yeah, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped. It's the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, it's like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. Head over to manscaped.com and join over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code CricketPod for 20% off and free shipping. And I believe, Jack, because it's Cyber Monday when we're recording this, there's an extra 25% off, I believe, across the site. So, go over to Manscaped right now, use code CricketPod for 20% off and free shipping worldwide.
Get yourself stuck in. Rudolph for your face. I don't know about that. Didn't Rudolph have a big red nose?
Yes, well, I mean, I'm just reading some copy there. I didn't write it. Okay. So, but yeah, I think quality assurance.
You were part reading it. You were part reading. The other part was throwing shade because I have baked beans with Christmas dinner. But
yeah, I mean that is weird. That is weird.
I don't think it's that weird.
Baked beans are for breakfast, or for children's dinners.
It's a really good combo. Do you not like beans?
I love beans. I love beans. Worcestershire sauce, black pepper, put them in baked beans on toast and cheese. Brilliant. That next to some broccoli. Nah, that's wrong.
You don't mix it with the broccoli. I think it mainly goes with your sausage meat and turkey because they're both a little bit dry, aren't they? And no, all I'm saying is keep an open mind, listener. Maybe on Christmas Eve, if you fancy jazzing things up a little bit, swing by your local co-op, pick up a couple of tins of Heinz, and see what happens.
See what happens. I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, Jack, I want to encourage people to send us Christmas dinners now with their baked beans on. See how much of a movement we can turn this into.
Yeah. Should we talk about some cricket?
Yeah, let's talk about some cricket. England beat New Zealand. Should we start there?
Yeah, right. This is what happened. New Zealand, they batted first. They got 348. A bit of ebb and flow on day one. Wicket in, I think, the second over. Then it was mainly New Zealand time. Then Shoaib Bashir bowled England back into contention later in the day. They wrapped up the tail on day 2. And then England scored 499, which was a good score. Ably assisted, I would say, by various butterfingered Kiwi fielders. Harry Brook, the star of the show, obviously, with I think he got 171. Quite close. Only one run out off the top of my head. Dropped 5 times on the way. My understanding. They also did take a great catch.
The dream innings.
They used all the catching ability with that. Like, honestly, the Glenn Phillips catch, one of the best catches you'll ever see, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a moment. But they should have spaced the ability out more evenly around the team and not stored it up for. And that's, I think, how cricket works. That left England in control of the test. Brydon Carse then seized even more control couldn't think of a good set of words to use there to
I like it. Yeah.
segue onwards. But yeah, Carse, he seized even more control. 6 for 42 or 42 for 6, depending on which way round you like your numbers. And that left England with a pretty easy chase of 104 to win, which they knocked off with relative ease, lost a couple of wickets. Jacob Bethel gets a 50 on debut. 1-0 England. New Zealand's World Test Championship hopes hanging by a thread. They probably needed to win 3-0, I think, to have a realistic chance of qualification. And they haven't. Ross, positives for England, though.
Yes, real positives.
Yeah, that's a big win.
Yeah, huge win. And I think some big performances on players that they've kind of taken a bit of a risk on. Like Bethel batting at 3 because of the whole not picking a backup wicketkeeper. And then obviously that wicketkeeper getting a fractured thumb. And it means that you didn't have someone to slot in. So Ollie Pope moved down the order. He hit runs, which is a good thing because he's looked like a bit of a cat on a hot tin roof for quite a lot of his Test career. He kind of goes through... He has like a good innings just when he needs a good innings, and the rest is a little bit kind of flatters to deceive. And then, Bethel hit a 50 from 3. Has come out and said, "I would have wanted to bat 3 anyway." So I don't know what all the furore is about. And he kind of just nonchalantly hit it right. It was like 37 balls or something. So he did very well. And Carse, who the TMS folk weren't a big fan of when he got called up. There's some purists, isn't there? He got for those who don't know, Carse got banned for betting on cricket games. I think it was like 300 odd games of cricket that he'd bet on historically. Got a 3-month ban, and in some areas that kind of means your international cricket or international career is going to be over.
You hate people who do this.
Yeah, I'm not going that we need proper match fixing, but then he wasn't found guilty of match fixing, was he?
Okay.
So I think they're slightly different things. I think you can be a gambling addict. I don't hate gambling addicts because it's an addiction.
This isn't where I thought this was going to go.
Yeah,
this is where I thought this was going to go. Yeah, carry on.
But then, if you're comparing Brydon Carse to Salman Butt, right? There's a completely different profile. Like Salman Butt is one of the worst cricketers and worst human beings.
He was a wicketkeeper. Very different player.
No,
was he?
I think he was an opening batter, but all-round twat. I think it's probably fair to say. Brydon Carse in this space, he's done something wrong. I don't think he bet on his own games. If he has bet on his own games, then do you know what? I'll eat some humble pie here, Jack. But I don't think that was the case. Otherwise, he would have had a longer ban than 3 months would be my thing, and probably the authorities would have been involved. So that's what I'm basing my judgment on without knowing everything. But he's come into the side, and the likes of Jonathan Agnew and those guys have had to say, do you know what? Good England suggestion, because he's done very, very well, and reminiscent of old Steve Harmison, another Durham lad. So not doing too badly.
Except obviously he's from South Africa. So
yeah, well. Yeah, but he's from Durham, isn't he? Plays for Durham.
I think, as we've said on this podcast before, a strong South African lineup is a strong England lineup. So I for one welcome Brydon Carse into the national team. Salman Butt, you're quite right, not a wicketkeeper. Don't know what I thought that he was. Did they have another wicketkeeper that did some match fixing?
Yep, and I don't know. And that was Mohammed Asif, Mohammed Amir, and Salman Butt were those guys, weren't they?
Cool. Yeah, it was great. It's great performance from Carse, I think, in that second innings. I mean, obviously at that point, England have battered themselves into a really good situation. / New Zealand have dropped themselves into a bad situation. But the spell of bowling he produced in the second innings, it was exciting. Exciting, not just in terms of winning that Test match, but in terms of England's forever goal of winning the Ashes Down Under. Roth, are we closer? Because that's basically what this all comes down to, doesn't it, for England? I mean, Ben Stokes basically said as much. He doesn't understand the World Test Championship. It's too confusing for him. They're not going to try and win that. It's all about the Ashes. So everything does have to kind of be processed through that lens. Like they've created the lens. They've told us what the project is. So we are, at this point in time, relatively early in that journey. Where's your Ashes excitement, Dar? registering?
Well, Brydon. Let's start with the battery of bowlers. We do have a little.
Okay.
More,
Yeah,
we do have more options, don't we? Right now, like Gus Atkinson has come in. I think Gus Atkinson's done really quite well, and he's taken to Test cricket nicely. You have to remember, and everyone who watches and listens to the show, we know that England bowlers ultimately are judged not only on their bowling, but kind of more on. There's a heavy weighting on their batting, isn't there? And Atkinson and Carse have both demonstrated that they can hit handy lower order runs, which I think is a big plus in that column. Every article that I've read and nearly every Twitter piece that's come out has said that Carse bowls a heavy ball. I always like this kind of saying in cricket: heavy ball, bowls much shorter than other people, and then that means that when he does pitch it up, people have been pushed back because they're a bit wary of playing on the back foot, and it brings LBW kind of into play and bowled. And he demonstrated that, right? He literally really did show exactly what he was made of there. Are those two better options than Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad in that space? Obviously, both retired. One kind of forcibly retired, as his book suggests. I don't know. It's exciting, but again, we're kind of hoping that these guys really take that step up. I think the New Zealand challenge is actually really quite good. Like if you compare some of the batters that they've got and you compare them to some of the Australian batters, I actually think it's not a bad test bed or a pilot, if you like, for it. And then the other person that I've still got concerns about travelling, Chris Wokes, but he did pick up a couple of wickets in the second innings here, and they were key wickets. But he was pretty poor in the first. So again, maybe that was just some nerves that he didn't want to live up to that stereotype that he's got about him.
Yeah, we kind of got on the while we're doing the bowling unit, we kind of got good Shoaib Bashir, bad Shoaib Bashir in this Test match as well. Like taking 4 for 69 in the first innings of a Test in at the Hagley Oval, where I think I heard 90% of the wickets have been taken by seam bowlers over the last 5 years. Like that's a really good performance. And in the second innings, gets sort of smashed around a little bit. And finishes with match figures of 4 for 130. Still not bad given the circumstances and the venue, but it was very much like, I hope he doesn't bowl like that in Perth in 12 months' time.
And some of the wickets that he did get in the first innings, they were quite poor batting. Like it wasn't right. Like I think again, you've still got to bowl them, still got to take the wickets, but again, Shoaib Bashir is learning on the job as he goes, and I think he's got a lot of expectation on that shoulders, bless him, and it's quite he's kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't a little bit at the moment. So fair play for him to keep on going, and offer something a little bit different.
So that's England's bowling. Batting wise, it was basically the Harry Brook show.
He's insane.
Get runs.
Well, Stokes kind of put the big stuff away, didn't he? Like Stokes has been struggling for a little while with the bat. He said as much in the Pakistan series that he was kind of going to the well. He was completely out of it from trying to get back from his hamstring injury, and here it was a measured innings from him. So nearly a strike rate about 50. Harry Brook, Atkinson, Carse and Pope he batted around them and batted in kind of partnerships. So it was a real, not to bring it into the conversation, but a real captain's knock, wasn't it, Jack, for this one? And him batting at 7 is not something that I kind of typically would have expected, really.
Yeah, I guess they wanted. I guess it would have been quite the demotion for Pope. Maybe Stokes taking one for the team there a little bit. He hasn't been batting that well. I don't think it was a bad decision necessarily to drop himself down the slot. Brook, though, we got distracted slightly there. 171 off 197 balls. How much do you think being dropped 5 times detracts from the impressive feat of scoring 171 runs in an innings?
Not even slightly. Genuinely, not even slightly. Like again, like everyone's played in those games where you've been caught out by like a miraculous catch, like a Glenn Phillips-esque catch, right? That happens. Yeah. It happens like second ball of your innings, just like, oh come on, mate. And sometimes you get all your luck comes at once, right? So I think you've still got to hit the runs in front of you. This bowling lineup from New Zealand's still pretty good, and he really did put it to the sword. His record abroad is amazing. Was it? He's got a second highest average of all time, only behind Sir Donald Bradman. I mean, that's something to write home about. And when he first came into this team, we were talking, is this guy going to be a generational talent? And at the moment, he's kind of showing, well, this guy's got an awful lot going for him. And playing away from home in New Zealand is still a tough ask. So, I think he should be very, very proud of kind of what he did. And when you look back on the history books, like, there's not too many bits where you can look at a scorecard. It doesn't say next to the scorecard how many times you got dropped, does it? So 171, take that to the bank, mate.
That is true, averaging 89 away from home. He has only played in New Zealand and Pakistan, and I think probably before we do anoint him as Bradman II, Bradman II.
But he's very close to.
Well, obviously he is. Yeah, like if he retired now, he would go down as the second greatest player of all time. I don't think there's any dispute about that. If you want to dispute it, leave us a comment on YouTube, and we'll be happy to have that argument. But there are almost everywhere else you go is going to be a tougher test. That's what I would say than New Zealand and Pakistan. But still got to score those runs. There are plenty of people out there who don't average 100 in New Zealand.
Yeah, there's plenty, absolutely plenty. And I think that Darren Lehmann might well come out and go that Harry Brook is not going to go down as one of the greats unless he hits a ton in Australia. And actually, I can see the Australian pitches benefiting kind of the way he plays. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing him in Australia.
Yeah, that's everything I think from an England point of view. Obviously, they'll go on to the second test in a few days' time. I want to say the 6th, but time zones are always a problem when we talk about New Zealand. So I'm not gonna make a firm commitment to that date. New Zealand will be hoping that they can bounce back. Besides the obvious, which is catch the ball. Could they have done anything differently here, or were they just outplayed?
I think they would be disappointed in their first innings batting. So I do think that they threw away some of their wickets in the first innings. Overall, like the first couple of days of the Test match for them was just a bit poor. Williamson aside, it was a little bit flat. Glenn Phillips is always an exciting cricketer, but he was guilty of, I think, dropped 3 of the catches. Did take probably one of the best Test match catches of all time. Like, that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, it was a great catch.
Like, it is absolutely flying, and he then was flying full length. It is an unbelievable catch. It's weird. We've kind of become a little bit used to him taking blinders, haven't we? And he hit a first innings half century as well. But again, they didn't do what New Zealand normally do. Like, the way in which I see New Zealand is kind of like they do all the basics really, really well. And they do it really, really consistently. And they kind of wait for you guys to make a mistake while they put the pressure on just in that space. On this one, they just alleviated all the pressure all the time. So, they were lucky, if I'm perfect honest, to get a first innings, to get a lead. They almost got bowled out. And if it wasn't for the likes of Daryl Mitchell providing a bit of resistance, it would have been an embarrassing opening loss for them.
Yeah. And what did he get? 84. Not bad. Could have got a ton. Be disappointed in himself there, Ross, I think. Although I suppose he ran out of partners, so maybe he won't be too disappointed.
Tim Southey keeps going as well. He's a 6 machine, isn't he? So he's got 2. Is it 2 more 6s to be at the top?
Oh, wow. No, I don't know. I know he hit 2 in the match. That's what...
He's in the top 5, isn't he? Highest 6 hitters in Test cricket, I believe. So he's not got too many to go. So I think if he can get another couple in his last 2 Test matches, because he retires at the end of this series, it'd be nice to get to 100. It's always nice to get to a nice round figure. So I think he's on 96, is he at the moment? So
let me take a look. 95 6s. He would have to hit. He would have to hit 47 6s and hope that Ben Stokes never hits a 6 again in Test cricket.
Doable.
To finish his career with the most. But he could overtake Callis. If he hits 4, Gale If he gets 5, he's tied with Gilchrist.
I mean, that's pretty good, right? For like a New Zealand number 10 or kind of number 9, if we're being generous, like that's a pretty good record to have.
Oh, I think that's good going. If he gets 2 more, he'll have the same number of sixes as Callis in 61 fewer tests.
Well, does that bring into the conversation who was the better all-rounder?
I think that's the only logical conclusion, or the only logical question to ask. Ross, I think that the only other thing I wanted to ask or talk about was Jacob Bethel, and the note I have here is good call, bad call. There was.
Do you want to play the good call and I'll play bad call, or?
I don't know whether it's a good call or a bad call. That's my note. I'm not really sure. It's a risky call. I think it's an interesting one. Like, Jacob Bethel, yes, he has had no career to speak of whatsoever in first class cricket. Like, you would not select him, period, based on what he's done so far in first class cricket. On the other hand, everyone says he's brilliant, and he's 21, and there is an element of, if you think that the guy is good enough, then pick him. Like, if he is good enough today, why make him prove it playing 7 matches of county championship before you select him next summer and whatever? Why not just pick, if you like him, and if you genuinely think he's better than Jordan Cox or whoever they could have brought on the plane. I don't even know who they would have gone for. Probably some wild card selection.
Ollie Robinson's now been picked up, isn't he? So the wicket-keeping one, who I didn't realise he shared the same birthday, as well as the same name, and he's a cricketer playing at the same time. He shares the same birthday. That is bonkers.
Yeah.
I think a good call overall. Like, again, for this kind of stuff, like ultimately you can only judge people upon outcomes, and he's ended up hitting a half century, even if it was in easy conditions, like batting at 3, completely did his job, right? So I don't think there can be anyone turning around and be like, it's a disgrace, he should be playing 5 games of the county championship. Like, ultimately he filled a gap, it worked out on this occasion. There's going to be a bigger sample size to go through whether it was a great selection in an England team over the next 5 years or 10 years. But for this one game, kind of paid off.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll take a break. We're going to come back, then we'll talk Border Gavaskar Trophy. Terrible name for a trophy. BGT is a terrible name. That's Britain's Got Talent. Surely there's a better name. That's all I'm saying. We'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we're about to talk India v Australia. Just a reminder that we are sponsored by Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com, use the code CricketPod for 25% off, plus free shipping for a limited time only. Do it. Head to the show notes. Ross, India v Australia, like, there's no match for us to cover. We covered that last week, but we are looking forward now to the second test, not the second day nighter, the second test, which will be a day nighter in the city of churches, Adelaide. Good news for people on time zone watch in the UK. That's a nice time to be watching cricket, I think, the Adelaide day night test. It's also the scene of 36 all out from a few years ago now. Will Australia bounce back with a vengeance? Yes or no?
I think they're obviously going to be a bit of a handful. I think that we said on the other show, on the review show, that they just seemed a little bit complacent and they underestimated India yet again, which more for them. Here, I'd be surprised if it was another 36 all out, but the way in which Jasprit Bumrah is bowling, it could inflict that onto Australia. I do think that there's some change, isn't there? So Josh Hazlewood is out. So, which is a slight issue. So it's likely to be Sean Abbott or Scott Boland. So Scott Boland, as we well know from being England followers, I suppose, wreaked havoc last time, I think, in the pink ball test. So if my memory could be served me badly there or rightly, who knows? But I just remember him getting Joe Root out repeatedly and us embarrassing ourselves under the floodlights too. So I think Australia will. Yeah, this is a bit of a lottery, if I'm perfectly honest. Far more of a lottery than the Perth game.
Why? What did you think would happen in the Perth game?
Well, I kind of thought there would be a much closer endeavour, and I think it was finished pretty much in 3.5 days or whatever. And ultimately Australia kind of shit the bed, didn't they, a little bit? So in this one, it's not surprising when somebody does shit the bed under the floodlights, because the ball does stupid things. It's very different. Yeah. It's very it's a bit of a who does best, which one player has a really good innings, and both teams have got batsmen who can definitely fulfill that.
I see what you mean. Yeah. No, I think there's a fair argument to say that that's the direction the test will go in. But it looks like Scotty B will be the man that comes in for Hazelwood. He averages 13.7 in day-night tests, so it would be interesting to see how he goes. Like his start did fade slightly, didn't it? I mean, he bowled fantastically in that Ashes series, then famously well again at the Oval to help Australia to the World Test Championship trophy. 18 months ago, whenever that was, and then got battered by England in the Ashes last summer, and then we've not seen too much of him or heard too much of him since. So I guess Australia have been waiting to redeploy Scott Boland. I wondered whether he'd ever play Test cricket again, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. 35 now. In general, Australia, Ross, are pretty old, and I wonder. There's kind of been, and it's interesting watching this from afar. Normally, when this sort of thing happens, it's people talking about England. But from afar, it's been quite interesting to observe the national meltdown that's been happening in Australia. Obviously we've got Boland coming back. He's 35 years old. They will be playing 10 players over the age of 30 in this test. The opener McSweeney, the only one under 31, I think. Like they're all old. The reserve bowlers that they've called up, Bo Webster, he's 31, and then Sean Abbott, he's 32. Will be 33 in February. So this is an old man team. I saw Ian Chappell, I think, had written an article for ESPN saying they've got a mindset problem. I've seen people castigating Marnus Labuschagne, saying his luck's run out. Everyone's catching the ball now. He was only ever good because people were dropping the ball. Marnus himself, Ross, he's been down the park with his mates to learn how to bat again or something like that. Cool. I saw lots of Australians excitedly posting that they thought his foot movement was looking much better in the park batting against his mates. And I kind of did think it would be bad if it was the same or worse, wouldn't it? Like if I was facing Bumrah or you, I would expect my foot movement to be better against you, Ross, than against Bumrah. But I'm just watching this from afar. I'm just a layman here. I think maybe it's a little bit of an overreaction, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. So I think Australia are probably about as good as they were 2 weeks ago, when everyone was talking about how it could cement their legacy if they win this series. Like I know they got pumped, but that does happen in cricket. Like teams get battered sometimes. It's not necessarily a permanent state of affairs now that Australia are bad. Yeah,
this is an issue where if you think of the stereotype for the Australian cricket fan and the ex-pro, especially at the international level in Australia, it's quite a macho piece, isn't it? They're just quite stern. Matthew Hayden was wearing a cowboy hat on the coverage, literally like the other day. There's a lot of kind of masculinity going on in the Australian media, all from the ex-players, and you kind of expect a little bit better. That this reaction is very kind of what language are they? They probably use the snowflake language for this. It's very reactionary. It's very kind of, oh my God, everything is broken. What are we doing about this? Is this the future of Australian Test cricket going down the pan, etc.? Like these guys are like world test. They've been world test champions. They've been world T20 champions. They've been ODI world champions. Like there's a whole team where they've done pretty much everything other than win the Ashes in England, and it's pretty staggering to see.
Or beat India in Australia.
Yeah, or beat India in Australia. Okay, and you're kind of sitting there going, guys, like you are playing against India, who are one of the best, if not the best team in the world right now. There is a couple of players in their team that, probably aren't living up to the big brands of Indian cricket names, but they're still good cricketers. And they had a bit of an off day with the bat. That's what kind of happens. The pitch was difficult to play on, and they should be looking at going, do you know what? We need to do something a little bit better here. Marnus has had some troubles in the last, 10, 15 test matches he's played in. But again, like Virat Kohli had that. Steve Smith has had that a little bit. Joe Root's had that. But everyone goes through those different patches in their career. And I think that he's actually got a pretty good record in Adelaide. Marnus, I think he averages over 60 odd in that space. So him going back to the park is probably a good thing. Him facing Ross Legg in the nets. Now that would be, I reckon I'd get Marnus out. He didn't like Darren Stevens, and I'm completely like 1/10 of Darren Stevens. So maybe on his worst day ever, I mean that'd be pretty
You'd
good.
get him out eventually, wouldn't you?
Yeah. If I had
with an international quality fielding team, like eventually he would get out.
Yeah, within 100 overs, I reckon.
100. Okay, I don't know about that.
100 overs.
Here's a question: Is this you having
Mm-hmm.
to bowl 100 overs, or is this interchangeable Ross legs?
Interchangeable Ross legs. I mean, I've got a pretty good tank. I reckon I've got a pretty good tank on me, but I think by the 6th over, I'll be struggling.
It'd be interesting. I would like. Carry on.
I think Marnus is clearly a good player, and they've done what every good team does when someone is kind of struggling for confidence in one area. They've turned him into another bowler. They've kind of gone, oh, you can't really bat at the moment. Fancy bowling a little bit for us to build up your confidence. Very Sunday league, which is all very Sunday friendly, which I like.
Well, they've got to make him, feel like he got his match fees worth because they're lining him up as future groundsman, I think, aren't they? They're thinking when he drops out the first team, we want him hanging around. He's really committed. He loves cricket. Like we need a new lawnmower guy, a lawnmower jockey.
Yeah, well, he's going to have a few kids as well. Like Labuschagne, Labuschagne's probably a shagger, right? He's probably one of those people, right? And it's literally he's going to want to bring his children up playing lots of cricket. Yeah. Like you can see multiple Labuschagnes like playing for South Australia, wherever he's from.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it's about. It's just making him feel like one of the boys. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Marnus. I think as well, people have got short memories. Australia bowled India out for 150 in the afternoon on day one. I know that after that it went wrong, but that's a match-winning bowling performance. If you do that regularly, you're going to win a lot of Test matches, even if your batting is a little bit shaky and you're a bit old. Like a lot had to go wrong from 150 all out for Australia to manage to lose that test and to lose it as badly as they did.
Am I right?
You win.
Yeah, and am I right in saying that this Australian batting lineup has the most experience playing under lights Test match cricket than any other Test playing nation?
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't want to bet my life on it, but they do play one Test match a year, I think. Under lights, and I'm not sure.
And they've not had big churn, have they? Right? So these players have been there, done that, got the T-shirt, smashed England, etc. So I think there is a little bit here around this the jettison of all the Australian thinking that's happening in the media at the moment. Yeah, it's an overreaction by people who should know better.
If they lose this test, though, then everyone can pile in.
Yeah, it's carnage. Carnage. Yeah, big. Yeah, I think Pat Cummins too woke as a captain. That will come out from Ian Chappell in the press. There'll be calls for David Warner to come back, mainly written by David Warner.
Rightly. Yeah, rightly.
And McSweeney will be kind of it'll be like, I don't know what McSweeney would be. He'll be
crucified.
He'll only allowed to play in England. So
like
who
that.
knows?
Yeah.
So they get the Marcus Harris treatment. So yeah.
They'll tie him to a rhino and feed him to a shark, like in Gladiator.
Don't give it away. That's the best plot line.
Yeah.
So,
India just lost 3-0 at home to New Zealand. Like it's that they are very beatable. They just literally 2 weeks ago. Short memories. Everyone's got short memories. This could go either way. Australia are probably the favourites to win this test. That's my take.
That's the point now. I think you're making that the problem with Australian ex-professionals is they're the TikTok generation. They are. They're just such short memories.
Yeah.
Doom scrolling. That is the problem.
But they're not really the TikTok generation. But I think I get what you're driving at here. People who are the TikTok generation, they understand that TikTok is a disposable thing. They've grown up with the internet. They understand that it's in a way it's not all real. Matt Hayden, he doesn't get it. He's ripe for some propaganda. Like I bet he's got some really questionable views about Russia. I'm going to leave that on the table. I think he probably
how do you
likes
think he ended up wearing a cowboy hat? How do you think that somebody, like literally, somebody has been going, right, well, can target him with an algorithm. And literally, he looked at cowboy hats once and they were just like, let's pile in on this dude. Like, they've gone on the haydenway.com. It's his own personal website. Go and look at it if you've not seen this before. And the man and the cowboy is probably a new section on there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But they're all like that. Darren Lehman, he 100%, he is Republican to me. I know he's not an American. And obviously we're big Donald Trump guys, as we said before the US election. And we are surprisingly actually still in the market for some
Saudi oil money as well.
Yeah.
Podcast.
And so it takes one to know one, right? I see Darren Lehman and I'm like, yeah, you're on the algorithm. You're definitely getting some climate change alternative facts, aren't you, Darren? I don't know how it's gone on to this. What they will need, Australia, is a plan for Bumrah. Have
you noticed the rhetoric that has changed? So since Usman Khawaja came out, it goes, yeah, you play him a couple of times, you get used to him. Travis Head, best player of all time, is going to be Jasprit Bumrah. Steve Smith coming out goes, yeah, he doesn't get easier to face. He's really difficult. It's very, very funny seeing them change their tune.
But maybe they're trying to pump his ego up and get him to do something crazy. I don't know. Maybe there's mind games.
Maybe.
Get him to rest on his laurels. Maybe that's the plan. Like, get Bumrah to start believing his own hype and hope he, I don't know, develop some poor off-field habits. That's as good a plan as any, to be frank, though. Because actually playing cricket against him, no one's been able to figure that out. He's at the peak of his powers. He's going to be playing under lights. You've got Usman Khawaja, who is struggling, as well as Labuschagne, and a debutant in the top three. If anything, in my thinking, has changed, it's that top three. I didn't really realise this, actually, with Khawaja. He hasn't really scored any runs for a while. He had a great 2023. 2024 has been a bit lean for Uzi. And I do think that's more of a weakness than maybe I appreciated. So maybe there's maybe Australia aren't as firm favourites as I thought before the series. I think I said 3-2 to Australia. Obviously, India being 1-0 up makes that prediction less likely. I don't know if Australia will win 3-2 from here, but they're going to have to solve that. Any ideas? What should they do cricketing terms? Don't get him in some sort of sting operation. More viable, yes, but not what we want to condone here on the Cricket Podcast. What can they do against Bumrah?
I think that if we had the answer to that, we'd be multimillionaires. I reckon people would be throwing money at us. We'd literally Punjab Kings owners would be like, "Come on, we've got 4 overs to face against him, or 8 overs we've got to face against him. We're going to pay you all this money." I think again, it is just them battering down the hatches. Right, they've got to find a way to try and just rotate the strike a little bit and not get pegged down against him. But there's no way where you can really go and take it to Jasprit Bumrah, especially in a pink ball test. I think it's going to be extremely difficult. They need to try and get miles in his legs. We've seen that he's got he's had injury problems in the past, and it's about that fitness question, right? And test match cricket, don't get beaten inside 3 days. Make sure that he's bowling 20, 25 overs and getting it in there, because Yeah, so the Australian bowling lineup, we've already had Hazelwood as a casualty, so it's that's I think the only part. And some of the people at the other end, they're still very, very capable, but they should have done their homework a little bit better, right? Rana with a couple of wickets, and Reddy is obviously going to play as well. So it's an interesting one for Australia to play against.
Yeah, it will be. I'm looking forward to it. A little bit of Indian news as well. Looks like Shubman Gill and Rohit Sharma will be available, which creates the good type of selection headache. There's rumours Rohit might bat in the middle order, and they'll keep Jaiswal and KL Rahul.
That'd be dumb. I
suppose the alternative would be Rohit goes back to opening with Jaiswal. KL, that's number 3. Do they jettison KL Rahul? He batted quite well in the first game. Does Shubman Gill get another day off because of his thumb? I think he played in the warm-up. I think he got runs in the warm-up as well. Few question marks for India of the good kind. What would you do?
I mean, if you're the captain and you're an opening batsman, you play as the opening batsman. Like, there's no other way to put it for me. Like, KL Rahul was there as a makeshift opener and did a good job, but like with all these things, you know your place, right? So KL Rahul slots back into the middle order for me. Jaiswal continues to open up. I think the question that I do have is which spinner do they actually play in this? Because
not Washington Sundar.
I'm just not aware. Like, loads and loads of Indians message us saying that Washington Sundar is fucking brilliant. Like, I'm just not there. I'm just not right there. Like, if you were to give me Ashwin or Jadeja or Washington Sundar, like, Washington Sundar is way down the list on that third place. Like, he is not near those two. And I recognise that you've got people, you need blood, new talent and all this kind of stuff, but you've got to pick your best players. And for me, Jadeja is a better option, and so is Ashwin.
Yeah, I would expect to see Jadeja, probably, but I don't know. It's Adelaide. This is where Adelaide's where England didn't play a spinner, and it was really dumb, wasn't it? So probably play a spinner. If I were India, probably play Jadeja because he's really good. if I was India, I do find it a little bit
weird that none of the Indian batsmen can turn their arm over. Like, because Rohit Sharma can't bowl anymore. No, but Kohli doesn't bowl anymore either. But there was that part where you kind of, if you were like Jaiswal or like, you just come in and Shubman
can bowl leg spin.
But they're not going to trust him to bowl leg spin. Like, it's a bit of a different era, isn't it? Now, like before, everyone could kind of open the batting and bowl a bit of off spin. Sachin Tendulkar could runs and then also bowl some pretty handy off spin. But that's not happening with this generation, and I don't know why.
Don't know. He's bowled 6 balls in Test cricket.
Oh, good sample size.
6 in T20 internationals for 11 runs. So there you go, little stat line on Jaiswal. Yeah, I don't know what they'll do. We'll see. Ross, I just want to wrap up the show really quickly by mentioning that South Africa pillaged Sri Lanka, and that puts them in a pretty good position to move us on to the thing that we're all excited about here, the World Test Championship. They're now in second place.
We've got tickets to that.
Points.
We've got tickets to that, Jack.
Oh, we do. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to the final. So 2 days
before
the wedding.
South Africa at Lords, that's a proposition. I think whoever makes it, they're liable to be in trouble with that bowling attack. Rabada, Janssen, Kurtzayer, that slope smashed England, didn't they? I think Lords absolutely smashed England last time they played there. So,
and I tell you what, how
South
good a news
still have to win
for Marco Janssen. Marco Janssen is looking good. Like for Punjab Kings, who picked him up, he's put on a bit of muscle. It doesn't look like this kind of the spindly Quentin Blake kind of caricature. He actually looks like a proper cricketer now. So very excited to see him play.
As they say, they basically, if South Africa, they've got 3 more tests. If they win them all, they've got 2 against Pakistan at home, 1 more against Sri Lanka. They are, I think, guaranteed to make it to the World Test Championship final. And then the other one is whoever wins out of India and Australia. barring some kind of mass draw fiasco, in which case New Zealand can potentially squeak in. So there's actually a lot to play for. Like it's Test cricket with context, all happening at once. It's really good stuff. I don't know if you want to finish by saying anything about South Africa beyond Marco Jansen's stacked.
So I think just the change that we've seen in South Africa cricket, right? So the SA20 obviously came in. Like South African cricket, like was on the brink. Like probably still is to a certain extent, like in that space. Like they're still in a precarious position, and yeah, the people who have going to turn that ship around, whether it's Graham Smith and all the kind of merry band there. This team, is again, if they end up playing at Lords in the World Test Championship final, then probably a lot has to go and say, do you know what? Their leadership actually made some really tough decisions, but made the right decisions. So when it comes to cricket business, South Africa have actually put a couple of foots right, and it's great to see their players flourishing in this lineup. And some of their fielding was absolutely spectacular in this game against Sri Lanka. And yeah, Sri Lanka, I don't think should be underestimated. I think they're not awful, right? They've got some really good players at the moment, so it's a nice victory for them so far.
I mean, if South Africa could bat at all, they'd be really good.
They've stolen one of our guys, haven't they?
Have they?
Yeah, isn't David Beddington? Isn't he supposedly like English? Yeah, supposed to be a bit English, but maybe I'm completely making that up. But I thought he was a little bit English because there was talk of him playing for England.
He's from Cape Town, so
arguably
that makes him South African. But
arguably makes him.
I think there was a bit of talk that Bellingham might represent England, but he played for South Africa. He's got I think 1 ton in 9 tests. I mean, it's never easy to bat in South Africa, so you have to take some of the averages with a pinch of salt. But
we also need more respect on Bavuma's name. Like Bavuma is a class player, and continuously kind of gets them out of the hole. So he's someone that is underappreciated, I think, by the South African cricket fans.
Yeah, he got his 3rd ton. He should have had more tons. I mean, he's a guy who's got 3,000 runs, averages 36. That's not bad. It's not like he's not going to go down in history as South African great. I don't think he'll go down as a South African good. But if you scored that many runs with a decent average, you should have more than 300s.
You should do,
yeah. Could have padded his stats. Maybe more.
Maybe just continuously ran out of partners. Maybe he's in that space. Like continuously got to the 80s and then literally just like, oh no, Maharaj is out again.
Right, Ross, we wrap up.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. Cool. We're sponsored by Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, use code CricketPod and get 20% off, and then plus their bonus money off for Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
All right, do that. Goodbye, everyone.